Well, I've made up a batch of dough, very loosely actually. It's 3 cups of flour, 2.5 cups of hot water out of the tap, a teaspoon of yeast and a teaspoon of salt. I've let that now proof for about 3 hours roughly, either side, not sure, about 3 hours. Now I'm going to flour the board so I can roll it out. It's a very wet dough. It's a lazy dough. There was really no kneading at all. Just mix it together, put it under cover and let it proof for 3 hours. You can see it's quite wobbly. It'll be okay. It's sticky. This is a lazy man's Sunday afternoon way to make hamburger buns. They've got some nice fillet steak. We're going to have a hamburger. Well, a fillet steak burger, I suppose, later. So I'm just scraping out the very wet mixture onto the board. And you can do bread so many different ways. This is the really lazy Sunday afternoon way. I'm just adding a little bit of flour over the top because it's wet. Now I don't have one of those fancy bread things, which I must get. So this is my fancy bread thing. It's called a spatula. Same thing, just flip it over. You're basically just trying to fold it. You're not kneading as such. You'll see what I mean as we keep going. That's still very wet, so I'm going to put a little bit more flour. I like to say, this method is really lazy. You don't knead as such, you just fold. So if you want a lazy way to make bread or buns, this is the way to do it. Just got to give it time in the initial process. You mix all the ingredients together, let it come together, no kneading involved at all. Just put the Glad wrap over the top of the bowl and forget about it for about 3 hours. And then when you come back, as you saw, I tipped it out. Still quite wet, but the fermentation has taken place. And here's my fancy bread slicer upper, which is just a big knife. I've got to get one of them bread things. Look very amateurish doing this, but still the bread tastes good. So I'm just roughly, and I mean roughly, portioning it into 6 pieces so I can make 6 big hamburger buns. And you'll see I pinch a bit off one to the other because they're not very evenly cut. I need to go to evenly cut school. Now again, there's no kneading. I'm just folding these over and just running my fingers through it to make a ball type shape. You haven't seen any kneading at all. As I said, this is just sort of folding it together, rolling it over and getting the shape. So if you don't like kneading bread, this is your method. Trust me, it's easy. This is where I pinched a little bit from a bigger portion. And they're very roughly shaped. There's no perfection in this at all. This is simply the way I do these lazy man's hamburger buns. And you just forget about them, like I say. You let it ferment, you tip it out, you form it into a rough shape. Roundish would be the way I would describe it. Certainly not perfectly round. And this one was giving me a bit of a hard time, so I had to fold this one over a couple of times on itself. But yeah, we got there. Like I say, that's just a rough round shape. So when it comes to bread in itself, I think the simplest way you can do bread, the better. An Australian damper is very simple. On a fire, open fire in a big hot cast iron pot, put it in there and forget about it, come out, take it out. Very similar to this method, not a great deal of kneading or mixing. I'm just reshaping them slightly to fit on the baking tray, which has got some wax paper underneath to make the ease of taking them off later easy. So what I'm going to do now is probably let these rise for about another 20-30 minutes. I've just turned the oven on, so when my oven goes ping, I'll be putting them in. Now I'm just cutting a few little slices into it just because I can. You don't have to. Just gives it a little bit of texture, that's all. You can be really fancy if you like, but that's all I was doing there. Nothing profound about that at all, just a bit of texture. So now I'm just going to put a little bit of water. These have been proofing for probably about 20 minutes. The oven just went ping. So about another 5 minutes, I'll be putting these straight into the oven. And before your very eyes, they'll be coming out again. There's no long drawn process with my cooking videos. It'll go in the oven and straight out, as far as you're concerned anyway. So I've just dampened the top with a little bit of warm water. And what I'm going to do here is to sprinkle some sesame seeds, because they're hamburger buns. So it's a sesame seed bun. Well, like I said, fillet burger. Anyway, they went into the oven, probably about 30, 35 minutes, something like that. They come out like that. And I can assure you they smell fantastic. And later on, I'm going to get my fillet burger organised. But that's my lazy man's hamburger bun. They look good, they smell good, and I would just about guarantee they are going to taste good. If you have been, thanks for watching.